Hello humans and animals alike, this is Stylus, and welcome to the bonus episode of Gex, where I will be talking about some things in the game I couldn't show off or mention during my playthrough, some unfinished levels, the alpha build, and finally, we'll end with Gex's backstory. Surprisingly, there is a lot to cover with this game, so take a seat, grab your popcorn, and let's get right into it. The first game oddity that I want to talk about is a sort of secret move that Gex has. When you're climbing a wall in the background like this, you can do a spinning tail whip. However, if you press the tail whip button at least 4 times with perfect timing, this happens. That move looks powerful, but all it really does is increase the attack range by a little bit. I will call this the Tail Tornado. And it's a pretty cool move despite its lacking in usefulness. Next, when you finish a level and you don't get every remote, the TV screen for the level does not change to static. The only level where this isn't really an issue is Rocket, as the level Knock Knock is entirely optional. When you pause the game, this is what the pause screen looks like. Pretty boring, huh? Well, something cool will happen if you wait on this pause screen for 3 minutes. As you can see, paw prints will begin covering the screen. This is actually a screen burn-in reduction feature, preventing your TV screen from getting messed up from hanging around a still image. Over time, the paws will cover up the entire screen. I guess that's why they call this a pause screen. Yeah, okay. As I've stated during my playthrough, this game loves giving out extra lives like candy, so it's rather unlikely you may get a game over, unless you're in the beginning of the game. What surprised me is that there are multiple game over themes that play depending on the world you get a game over on. Have a listen. Oh hey, look! It's that thing in the File Select screen. In the PlayStation version of Gex, not sure about other versions, there is a music glitch where sections of music tracks come in or loop too early. Here's an example comparison with the title screen music. For some reason, Gex's voice is lower pitched in versions other than the 3DO version, and it's the same with the sound effects as well. Perhaps it's a side effect from the porting job, but have a listen to some samples.
If I had a life, I'd be glad to get back to it. If I had a life, I'd be glad to get back to it.
Okay, where's the can? Okay, where's the can?
Have we met Mr. Tongue? Have we met Mr. Tongue?
This place is weirder than 4th of July at Rick James' place. This place is weirder than 4th of July at Rick James' place.
I can't believe I didn't mention this during my playthrough. Gex's voice actor is Dana Gould, a stand-up comedian, actor, and writer who is featured on networks such as HBO, Showtime, and Comedy Central. He voiced the character Hilarious in the TV series Father of the Bride, wrote for The Simpsons from 2001 to 2007, and even has his own podcast called The Dana Gould Hour. He and his frequent writing partner, Robert Cohen, wrote many of Gex's jokes. He also has a Twitter account where he may make some witty remarks about stuff that's going on in the world. So, if you enjoy his work, and if you have the balls to dive into the deep toxic cesspool known as Twitter, then following Dana Gould might be a fine idea. In the 3DO version, the outro FMV has a single frame where you can see a different screen than the one that would normally be seen. What's strange is that other versions of the game keep this older screen. Since Justin Nor's name was removed in the new 3DO screen, I wonder if that was a sort of punishment for him almost ruining the team's relationship with Panasonic, even though his name is still listed in the end credits. Several magazines back in the day hyped up Gex. There were some strange advertisements, as well as interviews with the Gex team, such as Lyle Hall. However, one magazine stood out to me. It was a Japanese 3DO magazine that had a one-page manga showcasing the intro to Gex. Really cool! The English adaptation is uploaded on DeviantArt by Gecko1993, and the translation was done by FurryTrash23. Thank you for sharing this discovery. Also, why the hell does Rez look like Bert from Sesame Street? Speaking of Gex in Japan, wanna see something cursed? This render of Gex in the Japanese PlayStation box art? This style of Gex probably looks cute on the side, but looks really weird at this angle. There were also 2 TV commercials that aired, showing Gex in some stunning detail that can't really be seen in the game. So beautiful looking there, Gexy. Thanks to RGTV for uploading the commercials on YouTube. Gex has over 400 quips that he could say in the game, but you'd only hear about half of these on a typical playthrough. I'll give you some quips that I didn't get during my playthrough that I personally found amusing. I'll also put a screenshot or clip for each quip to signify the situation Gex is, or might be in, to say it.
I've caught the vapors. Takes a licking and yeah, we've heard it.
Meep meep. Pull it over.
Did you enjoy that?
Oh, my head.
A slinky, a slinky.
No jumping on the beds. I'm only running from my problems.
Spock, to the transporter room.
To the Batcave, old chum.
Okay, where's the can?
What smells like socks?
Have we met Mr. Tongue?
Pardon?
My name is Forrest Gex. Help me, Spock.
Captain Picard is a Borg. Whip it good. Float like a butterfly, sting like a gecko.
We can rebuild him. Stronger, faster.
What are you, a student loan officer?
Nice haircut. When did we enlist? Ah, that Scientologist lust for life.
Do your arms ever get tired?
With a little cover-up, I could work magic on those scars.
I wasn't scared. Didn't hurt. You moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies.
Off the TV, nothing but net.
I'm on top of the world, Ma. Take your paws off me, you damn dirty ape.
All that work and I'm back where I started. It's just like college.
Hope they don't need ID.
When I die, can I call you? I never hit ladies.
And you're no lady.
She's really most sincerely dead. Looks like my wife in the morning. Well, that's one way to lose weight.
I told them they were overwatering. Okay, whose job was it to mow the lawn?
All this thanks to Miracle Grow. Memo to Gilligan. Try building a raft. A raft! Those programmers think of everything. It feels so good on my bald lizard head. Hey, look, it's Tarzan's bidet. Mental note.
Get a tetanus.
Damn it, Jim, I'm a gecko, not a pincushion.
Ha ha, Dr. Jones. Follow the crazy multicolored digital map, grasshopper.
Sure, it's a gland problem. Hey, you want some butter on those rolls? This isn't my bra. I'd like to have a long chat with your guidance counselors. It slices and dices makes julienne fries. Well, nice to see Gamera get another gig. Without that shell, you're just a naked lizard. You worse than Cabbage Patch dolls. These cartoons are so violent. Luke, you're coming in too fast. Pull up. Hello? Damn neighbor kids. Hi, I'm from Jehovah's Witnesses. Mommy, where do anvils come from? What is it with cartoons and anvils? How can I talk to you when you're like this? You are a disgrace to your leotards. Hey, it's Sir Mrs. A-Lot. I get the point. I know it's wrong, but God help me, I love it. What? Illegal cable? That tears it. I'm a rock, baby. Lean on me. Stronger than a drunk's denial. Dude, I am so high. Let's stay up all night and talk about death. Pulse racing, heart pounding. Where's the John? My nipples are hard. Look, it's my ex-wife. Can't stay. Nice to see you. Gotta go. Excuse me. Poodles are for stepping on. Say goodbye, you little cockroach.
Thanks to MNH Studios for uploading all the slick Gecko's quips onto YouTube. In the 3DO version of Gex, there is an option in the title screen called Previews. Selecting this will allow you to see, well, a preview of a game titled Slammin' Jam 95. Even though I'm not that interested in sports video games, this looks like a pretty cool basketball game. The PlayStation version has different previews. While not an option in the main menu, waiting a bit at the main menu will show an advertisement for various Crystal Dynamics games. This advertisement is so stupid. It screams 90s video game ads. This poor kid has to survive a bunch of other kids throwing dodgeballs at him, and the dodgeballs are signifying the power of the game's Crystal Dynamics has, or something like that. Well, it doesn't end well for him. Search Crystal Dynamics Walk It Off on YouTube if you want a good laugh at something cheesy. I will warn you, however, there are flashing lights.
I think he's dead.
Hey, pal. Walk it off.
There are many cheat codes that can be entered to acquire instant power-ups, infinite lives, invincibility, and other things. Each code can be deciphered as a code name. For example, LCD Runner, the code for the Centipede power-up, is left C down, right up, north north, that's up up, east, and right. So, right twice. Makes sense, right? Here's a list of all the cheat codes I can find with their code names for easy memorization.
Okay, rewind it again, please.
In the 3DO version only, there is a debug mode cheat. When this cheat is enabled, you can hold the X button and use the D-pad to freely move Gex anywhere you please, even through walls and floors. He still gets hurt by enemies and hazards though, unless you have the invincibility cheat. Pressing X and start will instantly kill Gex, but why would you do that? There are even more things to do in debug mode with a second controller. Pressing C on the second controller will give Gex a power-up. The power-up cycle is Caterpillar, Centipede, Nothing, Icefly, Firefly, Lightning Fly, Flea, Grasshopper, Butterfly, and repeats from there. Holding B and using the D-pad scales the screen, while holding B and C and using the D-pad rotates it. Holding L and using the D-pad scales Gex. Furthermore, if you pause, hold R, and enter the code LCD CD scale, that is left C down, down, C A, left, right, then Gex will keep this size for the level, until he goes into a warp, that is. But now you can have fun playing as Macro or Micro Gex. Pressing R toggles a bunch of information, including geometry, collision data, and more. Eventually, you'll see the level geometry disappear, and thin lines highlighting where the ground is. Pressing L here will toggle the thickness of the lines. By the way, when the terrain information is displayed, it takes a toll on the console CPU, so there will be massive lag. Well, have fun with the debug mode yourself, then. Now this is where things get really interesting. There is a level select cheat you can enter that not only lets you play any of the levels available normally in the game, but there are hidden unfinished levels that you can explore too. I'll be walking through all of these unfinished levels briefly. Grave 6. An unfinished level full of unused ideas, including currents and rotating skulls. Some bits of wall don't work properly. Secret 1. The secret levels here are all essentially testing grounds. Secret 1 is basically just a bunch of assets for the cartoon levels, including sofas, dynamite, carrots, and a hell of a lot of falling objects. Secret 4. A duplicate of the level POW, just with the sound bugged. Nothing much else to discuss. Secret 5. A room with a secret message that tells you to check out the levels that didn't make it. A few of the listed levels don't actually work. 6. The breakout minigame room without collision. When you turn on debug mode and fly around, you'll notice nothing is moving, and the blocks are all replaced with butterfly balls which can be tail whipped but not eaten. Jungle 1. A level titled Whip It. This level seems like it was almost finished, as it is entirely possible to legitimately play through it from start to finish. There are fly coins and power-ups, and even a fully functioning bonus portal. There were still some kinks for the team to iron out, like this floor somehow being lethal when landed on from above, and the camera not working properly when coming back from the bonus portal. I wonder if one more week was all they needed to finish this level.
Secrets? I just love
Jungle 4. Set in a camp where tribes people are out to get you. There's also quicksand Gex can swim through, which has Gex say some underwater quotes for some reason, as well as a bunch of traps. Also, most, if not all, the spikes in the level don't work. Past the camp, there's a temple you can enter that puts you in a section identical to one in Whip It. There's this pendulum that isn't seen anywhere else in the game too. Jungle 5. A level full of swaying platforms over a bottomless pit. It ends abruptly after a few platforms, so maybe this is just a testing room for the swinging platforms. But there aren't enough of these platforms in the other levels. Kung Fu 5. What the original Chop Chop was going to be like. In episode 9 of my playthrough, I told the story about how Justin Noor was so angry about a level being changed that he hid an angry secret message that led to him getting fired. Well, this is that level. What the team did was make a duplicate of the original Chop Chop and truncated or removed some parts of the level to make it easier for testing and getting the game shipped out after so many months of delay. By the way, these extra lives over here are in the final version, but they can't actually be gotten in the final version. The original version, it is possible. Res 3. A brand new tough-as-nails level with disappearing wall faces and platforms. Kinda like those infamous Mega Man levels with disappearing blocks. The disappearing blocks and satellites in this level are sources for Gex to say some unique quips, essentially making such quips go unused. There are also these robots that are only normally seen in the secret breakout minigame. they drop liquid res out of them. I don't think the level can legitimately be finished thanks to segments like this, but there is an exit TV. I'd argue this level was almost finished, but damn, those disappearing panels are an eyesore. Res 5, a level with electric spheres and moving platforms. There's a section of moving platforms where you can't go up to the next platform without getting hit by the satellite beam. But once you clear it and go through the portal at the top, the game crashes. Whoops. Glue 2, Win. A test room of sorts showing the font from the alpha build, which I will talk about soon. Overall, amidst a bunch of testing rooms lie some cool ideas and levels that almost made it into the game. If you thought the jungle and Resopolis worlds felt really short, well, they would have been longer if the team had more time to iron out glitches and stuff. Whippet in particular was so darn close to making it, it kinda makes me sad. But wait, there's more! There's another level select code that lets you enter the secret sci-fi levels. The levels labeled sci-fi in the other level select don't work. Choosing the level SL71 takes you to an unused boss, a giant robot that uses a shrink ray against you. The goal for this level is to wait for a green ball to come down and lick it repeatedly to grow big enough to fight the robot. It's a very interesting, yet really easy boss. While the music in this battle is the secret credits theme, there's an unused track hidden in the game's files that seems to fit this battle more. Have a listen. In 2011, a Russian compilation disc named 3DO Game Pack No. 1 was made by MNEMO. Nemo? One of the games included was an alpha build of Gex. The ISO was dumped and released in 2020 by Gex Gaming with Nemo's permission. The alpha build immediately boots you to the level select screen. Pretty much every level on here is incomplete, but there's a treasure trove of stuff to be discovered on here. The alpha title uses the basic black static background in the final game, an early version of the logo and animation, and Gex pops in and looks like a creeper waiting at your front door. The options menu appears to mostly be the same aside from an ugly font, I must say. There's no voice setting, and instead there's both a sound test and a music test. The sound test option would be removed and the voice option would be added in the final game. By the way, there's no sound whatsoever in the alpha build. Also, tongue lashing and spitting are mapped to two separate buttons, whereas they were merged in the final game. Attempting to exit unfortunately crashes the game. Actually playing the alpha build, it feels a lot clunkier and slower than the final game. Gex moves slower and there's a noticeable delay to everything he does. He's also nowhere near as athletic. I mean, look at how helpless he looks when he lets go of a wall. Some hitboxes also have some crazy jank, making this really frustrating to play. I mean, it is an alpha build. Something significant in the alpha build is that Gex can tail bounce on the ground instead of it being exclusively used on enemies, certain hazards, and destructible objects. Another feature that was cut from the final game was Gex using his tongue to put objects in his mouth to spit out at enemies, kinda like Yoshi. This is an ability that Gex has never done in any of his games, but it makes sense for him to use, and it makes me bummed out this never saw the light of day. Something else about the alpha build has to do with the bug power-ups. In the final game, tail whipping the power ball restored Gex's health, and eating it will grant Gex a special power. It's the opposite in the alpha build. Eating the power ball restores Gex's health, while tail whipping it releases the bug, allowing for Gex to eat it in its prime form and gain its special power, if he can catch it. Each bug behaves differently, making it somewhat difficult to acquire power-ups here. Have you seen the bug icon at the top of the screen? This has to do with another cut feature involving the Gex Ray. Pressing start will let you see Gex's stomach. Ah, there's the Vor content I was waiting to see. And I assume all the bugs he would have eaten. These bugs would be saved for later and their powers activated via the Gex Ray, I would imagine. It's kinda like the item system in Super Mario World. Power-ups can't be activated from the Gex Ray in this build, unfortunately, so I can only speculate that's the deal with it. The bugs inside Gex's stomach seen here are the fire, ice, and lightning flies, as well as a bug that was never in the final game, the dragonfly. When Gex finds a dragonfly and eats it, he will gain 1,234 points, and when Gex is in the air, he can grow wings and fly? Wow, he can hang and he can fly is right. Gex can move freely with this power-up until he lands. This looks to be overpowered, so it's not too surprising this was scrapped. Also, getting hit still makes you lose your active power-up, so... It also seems like keeping the power-ups with you to the end of the level will result in bonus points and even a 1-up if you have enough bugs in your stomach. There are also some early maps that you can view. I guess you can see them in pretty much what their intended form was supposed to be. There are some platforms you can stand on, but can also crawl behind when climbing on a wall face. This sort of thing does exist in the final game, but I think only the level Fishbait used it for a secret room at the end of the level. Overall, there are a lot of neat gameplay mechanics that never made it into the final game, but it seems like what the Gex team wanted to prioritize was to make the gameplay easy to understand, the controls smooth as butter, and fixing up any hitbox hiccups. I think they succeeded with those. The gameplay is a lot of fun, and the controls feel great when you get the hang of it. Now I shall move on to the levels. As I have stated before, basically every level is incomplete, some of which hang on a black screen requiring you to reset. Some of the levels that work are only early versions of levels found in the final game. However, I will limit my discussion to the levels in this build that I found to be particularly unique. Also, debug mode is on by default, which is a godsend for me since the game at this stage is so painful to play. Starting off, some of the graveyard levels have this freaky slime monster that behaves somewhat similarly to the sentient liquid res in Rhizopolis. However, tail whipping them will make them split into 4 smaller slimes. They're annoying. Jungle 1 brings us to a temple of some sort with assets not used in the final game, including these falling rocks and these windows. There's very little floor collision data, so that is why so many different things are falling from the sky. At the top there's a unique window that takes you back to the start. I think there could have been more levels like this where you climb on the background most of the time. This sort of thing is only prevalent in the Twin Towers in the final game. The second jungle level is an early version of Congo Chaos. The bongos let you jump much higher than in the final game, but has some terrible collision data. A remote upon retrieving it activates a trap, just like in Indiana Jones. But instead of the level auto-scrolling, the level would threaten you with a bed of spikes instead. You can also see the Indiana Jones geckos falling off ledges, which doesn't really happen in the final game. I also found a camera. Rez is watching you. In the Kung Fu levels, sumo wrestlers can jump, whereas they don't in the final game. There are also ninjas that don't appear at all in the final game, as well as these swinging balls on poles and firecrackers in boxes. One Kung Fu level has a concept that never made it to the final game: laundry gondolas. A lot like some levels in Super Mario World, but without the fuzzies. I can imagine this level being pretty tough for some. I can also imagine Gex constantly saying, "I said no starch!" Now for my most interesting find. The boss battle against Rez was seemingly going to be completely different from what it was in the final build. Let's break this down. First, you come into the battle inside a trapped TV. Rez uses a remote to activate a wall of TVs to crush you. There's a lone TV you must go into to escape the trap, and you will appear in the same arena as Rez. After that, Rez would launch his arms, which you can tail whip to take out. Then poor armless Rez would shoot lasers out of his eyes, then shoot some fireballs, shoot lasers again, then repeat the cycle starting with activating the trap. There's a TV remote on the right end of the arena that, when you press up, erases the trap in the trapped TV. I imagine there would be some sort of devastating attack Rez would have so that you would need to retreat into the trapped TV to stay safe. You can also climb on the wall in the background. Rez has no damaging properties, so he cannot hurt you. After so many hits, both Gex and Rez will be transported inside a large TV, marking the next phase. A number between 1 and 5 will show in the background, which will determine the attack pattern Rez would use to fight you. 1 is Rez doing a tornado attack, spinning around the room for a few seconds. 2 is 2 mini-Rezes doing a tornado attack that each split into 2 mini-Rezes when tail-whipped. Tail-whip them again to take them out. 3, Rez quickly launches fireballs with his arm cannon. 4 has 2 Rezes blast off their arms, which bounce all over the arena and must be tail-whacked. 5 is a heavy onslaught of TVs, and depending on the circumstances, will crash the game. In the alpha build, the set cycles 4, 2, 5, 3, 1, and repeats. Wow, this would have been such a great final boss. Using the TV numbers like that to indicate a certain action seems quite original. I also never thought Rez could make copies of himself. If Gex 4 is ever a thing, I hope it takes cues from this early fight to make a unique final boss. Phew! That was a lot to go over. But we're almost home, viewers. It's time that we conclude this bonus episode by talking about Gex's backstory. This is a long one, and most of it doesn't have anything to do with the actual game, but I actually found a lot of stuff to be interesting about it, so buckle yourselves up, because this is going to be a pretty wild ride. Hawaii. A lush tropical paradise, famous for many things. Magnum P.I., Hawaiian Eye, that TV show starring Jack Lord's hair, and most importantly, the world's largest population of gecko lizards. That's right, geckos. And one family of geckos in particular had a very special problem. Deep in a valley on Maui lived a gecko family that was just trying to make ends meet. Mom had her paws full raising 3.5 kids. Their numbers were dependent upon their regenerative powers, while Dad was away doing research for NASA. Gex, the oldest offspring, was a bright lad who would spend his days with his friends, surfing, playing the ukulele, and throwing poi parties down on the beach with the local lady lizards. That all changed, though, the day his mother got a call from NASA telling her the tragic news. The rocket containing Dad and 10 other volunteers chosen to see if they would eat tapioca pudding in zero gravity had exploded on the launch pad due to a Band-Aid floating in one of the fuel tanks. Their family's carefree, upper-middle-class life shattered. While the rest of the family dealt with their grief in the usual manner, crying, infighting, and rummaging through Dad's stuff, Gex bottled up his feelings. He took refuge in front of the only thing in his house that had always provided him with undemanding comfort: the TV. Gex found out that in his time of need, all his old and sometimes forgotten friends were still there, ready to take his mind off his troubles. There was Kimba the white lion, eager to take him on an adventure through the African savannas. The $6 Million Man would stop by with a quick bionic pick-me-up. Partridge Family would play a song and then shake their heads at the wacky antics of Mr. Reuben Kincaid. These were Gex's true friends, and he was willing to spend the rest of his life in their groovy company. Try as she might, Gex's mom could not pry her son away from the boob tube. So, after consulting with the family minister and the weird guy at work, she decided it was time for a change of scenery. They were going to leave Hawaii and start a new life in California. One week later, a moving van pulled up in front of the family's new ranch-style home in Encino, California, surrounded by white picket fences and white supremacists. As the moving men unloaded a crate containing Gex and his beloved TV, his mother exclaimed that she was excited about the family's new beginning. Gex just laughed and told her that was exactly what Maud said to her husband after she went through menopause. Gex was still having trouble dealing with his father's death, but Mom thought she knew just what to do. That night, the doorbell rang, and a burly older lizard came in carrying a basket of treats. He said his name was Harv, and he lived next door and wanted to welcome the new neighbors. As he passed out various chocolate-covered bugs to Gex's siblings, Harv mentioned a little too loudly that he had one spot left on his Saturday all-pro girl-watching team, and was wondering if there was someone around to fill it. Gex told him, from in front of the TV, that Jack Tripper was available, but only if he could get out of the 2 dates he had made for the same night. Harv seemed a little confused. He whispered something to Mom, and then took a seat next to the tuned-out Gecko. Then Harv asked Gex straight out if he would like to take that spot on the team. Gex replied that he'd love to, but had promised Bosley that he would watch the Angels for him all week. Harv chuckled, and suggested that maybe Gex was watching a little too much TV, and needed to get outside. Without taking his eyes off the set, Gex explained that the last time he had gone outside, his dad blew up, surrounded by gallons of burning tapioca. Completely out of ideas, Harv bid Mom an exasperated farewell and left. Now what was a concerned mother to do? The next morning, Gex came running downstairs, expecting to have breakfast with the banana splits as usual, when he froze in his tracks. The TV was gone! This must be some kind of joke. Was it out for repairs? Did someone break in and steal it? Come on, man, this isn't funny! The room began to spin. Gex needed a TV fix. The little suction cups on his hands were beginning to twitch. What the heck was going on? Just then, his mother came in the room. "If you're looking for the TV, I gave it away to some gypsies early this morning," she said. She told him that enough was enough, and he needed to start doing things like a normal gecko. Go catch some flies, practice walking up walls, enter a tongue-lashing contest, but for cripe's sake, stop watching TV! Gex couldn't believe this. The one thing in his life that had meaning was gone, and his mother was behind it. Exploding with rage, Gex announced that he was never setting foot inside this TV-less house again, and stormed out the front door. Mom ran after him, begging him to stay, but it was too late. She had done the unthinkable, and this was the result. The next few months were a blur. Gex hooked up with some local punks and spent his days skateboarding to the mall, hanging out in comic stores, and blaring music through his Walkman on a cliff overlooking the city. He slept in a friend's garage and made pocket money doing errands for frustrated housewives. His entire existence became one long, aimless haze, with none of his TV friends around to help out. This seemed to be how he would spend the rest of his life. Or was it? One day, as he was skateboarding along talking to his invisible buddy, the mayor — life on the streets does things to a gecko — a long black limo pulled up. Gex was about to have his honor go insult the driver when the rear window rolled down and he saw his mother. Mom told Gex she was so glad to have finally found him because she had fantastic news. 3 days after he had left, Gex's great-uncle Charlie had kicked the bucket and left his entire estate to the family. The amazing part was that, unbeknownst to the family, Uncle Charlie was the original model for the Izod shirt logo. He had invested his meager modeling salary back into company stock. At the time of his passing into the great beyond, Uncle Charlie's estimated worth was over $20 billion. The family was rich! Shocked out of his mind, Gex jumped up in the air, told the mayor he had just been impeached, and hopped into Mom's limo. The hard times were over. He was going to start living life right. For the next few weeks, the entire family went on a mad spending spree, buying houses, cars, local judges, and politicians. Mom purchased 51% ownership in NASA and then fired everybody, sold the rockets to some third world countries, and converted Mission Control into a theme restaurant featuring robotic dancing chimps wearing spacesuits. Gex's siblings said they had always wanted to see Australia, so they bought it. Gex, on the other hand, was not into all the cars, jewels, and other extravagances. He took his share of the fortune, tucked it into his pants pocket, and went for a walk. He walked and walked and walked, wondering what to do with his share. Then it hit him. He would use the cash to fulfill a long-time dream. Exactly 1 hour later, Gex called his mother down at her restaurant, Space Monkeys, and told her goodbye. He was going back to Hawaii. He was going to buy the biggest house on Maui, fill it with the world's largest TV set and enough food for decades, and then seal himself inside. He was going to spend the rest of his life watching all his old TV friends getting into outrageous situations or amazing adventures. Mom wished him the best of luck and then ran off to rewire some faulty chimps. Gex hung up the phone and headed out to build his dream. In a few days, Gex was parked in front of his TV, munching from a nearby bowl of flies. He was in the middle of flipping through channels to see what was on. Nope, he droned as he clicked the remote again and again, surfing through reruns of Kung Fu Theater, a wacky cartoon, and an old Indiana Jones movie. Those shows were so boring. He'd already seen them all at least 1,000,000 times. He was ready for something different. Frustrated, Gex started clicking all the remote's buttons rapid fire, speeding through the channels in a super fast blur. While he was clicking and kicking back, a fly buzzed by. Gex flicked out his tongue and down it went. But the fly was in reality a metallic transmitter. Gex was bugged. Suddenly, Gex's remote jammed and the TV blanked. A huge hand shot out of the screen, grabbed Gex by the neck and... just like that, Gex had been yanked through his TV into the media dimension. The cold claw belonged to Rez, who had hooked Gex with a bugged fly. Rez was the lord of the media dimension. He now intended to make Gex the new network mascot. Out with the peacock, in with the gecko. Gex could only escape by getting his paws on the remote controls hidden throughout the media dimension. Once he had the remotes, he could destroy the TV sets that blocked the exits and were the portals into the next worlds. Gex had to find the last remote, blow up the last TV in the last world, and make it home. Or spend the rest of his gecko life as a bronzed network mascot. To summarize, before his father's death, Gex got along well with life. He got along well with his family and went surfing with friends, played ukulele, threw poi parties. Stated later in the manual about Gex's moves, he mastered his tail whipping from batting pineapples with the local ball club, the Molokai Scalers, using only his tail. His time at Poi Boy's sushi bar also gave him an incredible tongue lash. He was an active gecko until his father died. He cared a lot about his cool attitude, and instead of letting his emotions out, he decided to drown his sorrows silently by watching TV. He would spend hours and hours doing nothing but watch TV characters, which he thought of as his real friends, going on all kinds of adventures to escape from the harsh realities of life. Gex's mother was worried and figured moving to a different location would help bring the family together again, but Gex was already comfortable with his new life watching TV, so much so that he stayed in the same box as the TV during the move-out. He refused to go outside or even come in contact with his family, friends, and neighbors. Frustrated, Gex's mom dared to give the TV away while he was asleep in an attempt to get him to start acting like a normal gecko. Gex became furious at this and vowed to leave the house for good. Living life on his own without a TV, Gex's mind slowly began to crumble. Hanging with local punks, sleeping in a friend's garage, and doing odd jobs to make a little money, possibly living expenses. He even made an imaginary friend which he called the mayor that would always be by his side. Months later, his mom found him and told him about his Uncle Charlie's passing and the money he passed on to the family. While his family bought cars, businesses, politicians, and even the entirety of Australia, how the hell does that even work? Gex was only interested in being with his TV friends again, what he called his lifelong dream. Without saying anything about it to his mom, he used his share of money to buy the biggest mansion in Maui, fill it with the world's largest TV set, and a lifetime supply of food. He would then seal himself shut from the real world forever. Rez, overlord of the media dimension, had kept an eye on Gex for a while now. He decided the TV addict would be the perfect network mascot. Sending a tracking fly to Gex, Rez was able to find him and pull him into the media dimension against his will, where TV shows of all kinds, past and present, are meshed together. Gex was an absolute mess after his father's death. He tried hard to be cool and hide his depression, but his feelings and the TV ate away his mind. His cool attitude backfired and caused him to end up in a worse mental state. This was a time when masculinity was defined by hiding one's emotions.
And now, he's not even interested in making genuine connections anymore. He abandoned his family and friends in favor of watching TV all day. What was once a hobby, a sort of escapism, was now an addiction. Without a TV, Gex experienced almost immediate withdrawal symptoms. As evidenced by the intro FMV, Gex was living like a slob. He did not bother putting away his surfboard and skateboard. His family photo, Walkman, and other things are left in their open boxes. The room he watches TV in was full of crumbs and spider webs, and the only furniture being his TV set, the Barca lounger, and a lamp. He was very impatient to get to watching TV, and who knows how long his stuff would be laying around. Gex really isn't that cool of a dude when you think about it. He's actually kind of a loser. He couldn't handle his emotions well. He's become addicted to TV. His entire personality had been forged from all the media that he's sucked into his gecko brain. He's become detached from his family and friends, and the only connections he's willing to make were the TV characters and their actors. I theorize this is something that goes into play with the third game in the series, but that's for another day. I also want to talk a little more about Rez. Rez, to me, is a symbol of the worst of TV, including Z-movies, propaganda, fake news, and the overall addictiveness of it. When you submit yourself to all kinds of filth on TV, Rez takes over your life, grabbing you by the neck and sending you down a deep hole into TV addiction. It would be very difficult at that time to get out of that hole, but the moves Gex mastered before his TV addiction would help him out. Various characters and the TVs within the media dimension would try to stop Gex from making it out of the TV hellhole. But with the remnants of his more active life still in his mind, he had the wits and skill to make it out. You know, talking about all this will eventually make me think the entire Gex series is really just a fever dream. I guess I just like overthinking things. I think for some of us, Gex is a very relatable character. His fear of the real world and comfort in fantasy may reflect with some people, myself included. And that's something I unironically appreciate about Gex's character. Even though the story itself was probably not meant to be taken too seriously, I think in our age of social media, we could learn a thing or two from Gex. If you're stressed or coping with the loss of a loved one or anything else dear to you, stuff like TV, video games, and social media will only get you so far. Revolving your whole life around such material things may result in even worse mental health. As smooth and slick as he is, don't be like Gex. It's okay to cry. Hit your pillow, scream in your pillow, hug whoever you're close to. Let all your emotions out, or your emotions will eat away at your brain. Go outside and do something worthwhile for yourself and others. Give your life meaning. And most importantly, seek help. Never be afraid to ask for help. The real cool people know they can't do everything alone.